quantum technology. Instead of imagining individual electrons orbiting around the nucleus of an atom like outdated models depict, you'd imagine each electron orbital is actually a 3D field made of the electron theoretically occupying every point within that field at once and having no precise position in orbit. We call this atomic scale the quantum level, and we can't make measurements of these quantum systems to identify the position of the electron without drastically interfering through the process of measurement. The atom isn't the smallest unit, because it's made up of several known types of even smaller subatomic particles. You can understand the fundamentals of how our quantum technologies work using these new phenomena without needing to memorize the highly technical vocabulary and mathematics. You don't need to be able to calculate the angular momentum of electrons to grasp the concepts being implemented to help us up here in the macro realm. Everything you see up here on the macro level of the world is subject to different laws than on the nano-quantum level. In the complex interactions of particles, we see quantum effects that are unexplained by Einstein's general relativity. Some of these alternative laws that govern how particles interact can be taken advantage of to serve applications up here. Quantum computers use one effect referred to as the superposition of entangled particles to increase their computational processing capacity. Mere conventional computers take 10,000 years to process the same data a quantum computer can process in seconds, as Google claimed to do with their quantum computer. Instead of using 1s and 0s as bits, we're using the spins of electrons to solve problems exponentially faster as qubits. These qubits sustain a quantum-level connection between groups of individual particles that can be stored or measured with less resources and with more scalability. The functionality of a system of qubits scales up exponentially with every additional qubit added, like folding a piece of paper over and over again. That exponential power is what we call quantum supremacy, because whoever has the control of that technology can perform what you may call magic. There is a long list of problems a quantum computer can help us solve, and when you go through them, you see how it's essential for our utopia. We're talking about exponentially accurate 3D modeling for weather predictions. We can process the massive amounts of data we have with quantum algorithms to derive patterns to, for instance, accurately detect cancer in imaging scans. We can use it to develop the most advanced drugs, sensors, AI, neural nets, batteries, and nano-level developments. Another quantum effect is called quantum thermodynamics, which enables us to create limit-breaking battery technology. These are the prime examples of new technologies you need to be aware about to be making the right decisions for us all. We're combining quantum systems with biological matter, like DNA, to create biological computers, which sounds so bizarre I have to disclose to you that it's already being done and patented by Microsoft, and they provide public updates on the developments. DNA also acts as a memory storage mechanism with incomprehensibly high storage capacity. Since our quantum computer machinery is on the same size scale, you can conceptualize how they'd work together to form biological computers, as Microsoft puts it. Once you've grasped that, then you can go on to think about how those can be incorporated into our bodies and brains to serve sophisticated functions. Mind you, it can be powered by nothing except your body heat, which is a charging technique we're currently using to power other implantable devices and wearables. You should also know our brains are essentially large biological quantum computers. When you start to examine the different biological molecular machinery of naturally occurring organisms and cells, we see that they're intelligently designed. We now have better techniques for visualizing cellular level activity, and this incredible technology allows us to more accurately examine the molecular machinery as it's working. We have an eye with 20/20 vision on that cellular level that lets us see in exquisite detail, and if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to look it up. It adds a whole new layer of meaning to life, because that is the newest frontier for us to discover. That superhuman ability to visualize reality at that scale is a game-changing development that enables us to further advance many more fields of science. Ultimately, you see the power that quantum technologies grant the controllers. Shouldn't we demand transparency? some degree of equitable access, and oversight to ensure it's not being used nefariously. I mean, it seems pretty obvious it's already being used in ways we don't know about. It's not like they just own the quantum computers you're just realizing exists without utilizing it right. When you're ready to admit, you'll admit that our sense of cybersecurity is an illusion, and without our own quantum computers, we're at a disadvantage. We will refortify every bit of hardware and software that our electronic systems rely on using quantum cryptography to encrypt data to become virtually unhackable. The process of replacing our conventional computers with more advanced computers will drastically increase productivity. These quantum technologies will be used to create new market sectors and allow us to discover more secrets of the universe in the decades to come. A field of science everyone has to try to be aware about is how exposure to different electromagnetic fields modulates our gene expression and alters our natural biology. To put it simply, fields you can't see influence your biology in complex ways. That means every different type of cell in your body and everything that makes up those cells has a specific frequency that alters its functionality. Thousands of studies going back decades and thousands of top scientific publications can show you how this works. For instance, in 1995, scientists showed that the Epstein-Barr virus in human lymphoid cells activated when exposed to 50 Hz. Whether we're talking about the permeability of a cell membrane of a specific type of cell, or the activation of viral transcriptions, replications, or its influence on other biochemical processes that then lead to changes to the DNA, with or without interacting with the nucleus. It's been widely documented that EMF can stimulate biochemical systems and also activate or inhibit gene expression. Separately, we're actually creating cells that were programmed and calibrated to react from exposure to any predetermined frequencies we choose. That means we can manipulate non-living or living cells in imaginative ways to, for instance, move them across a surface, activate a chosen genetic sequence, increase or decrease the permeability of their membranes to release a medicine, or change the properties of the substrate they're in. There are infinite ways this can be pioneered by you. You can also introduce a foreign enzyme, protein, or other nanotechnology into the body, then use the right EMF to trigger a process or function, good or bad, but remember to choose good. That's how a potential binary bioweapon would operate that uses EMF exposure, whether or not you want to admit it can be from the EMF beacons we hold in our hands, or that we let them build around us. The nanotechnologies we make will be controlled with EMF too, as is being done now. And really our entire civilization will be futurized if we use this knowledge correctly. You can see how vast this field is, and that's just a fraction of the information you can find on how EMF are being used on the nano, micro, and macro level. The 5G and 6G plus infrastructure being built around us should be a major component of our utopia, but scientifically it could be used to harm us, and you'd be anti-science to disagree. Do we know the full scope of how they can be operated, and can the dial be turned up on us? Directed energy technology is 50 years in the making, and our military uses it for many applications like dispersing protesters, transferring wireless energy, beaming sound, taking down drones, powering drones, disabling electronics, inducing many types of reactions in people and in space. That's all easily verifiable information for you to explore, and when you look at it, it doesn't look like a ray gun. It looks like a harmless panel or dish, like the 5G plus panels and dishes. Direct energy weapons are 100% real, and you'd be stupid to deny that undeniable truth or deny our attempts to ensure our safety. Seems like it's obvious we need to ensure the fields we're exposed to on a daily basis aren't harming us with prolonged exposure or are capable of changing to be harmful without us seeing it. That's not a hyperbolic overreaction. That's the default position, because right now we're bathed in radiation without considering how it's harming our health. Elon Musk actually said you don't have to worry about 5G plus at all, which completely ignored this major field of science that says even extremely low-frequency magnetic fields at low intensities affect you on a cellular level. It doesn't have to be ionizing radiation to harm you. It only has to be the right frequency to, for instance, reduce your cell's ability to absorb oxygen, or to decrease the blood-brain barrier permeability, or induce microscopic blood clots. That's all known science. Seems pretty stupid to be completely dismissing known science. We're dealing with cellular-level activity that is easily influenced by the fields around us, and further understanding this field will allow us to heal ourselves in new ways, as is being researched now. That's not blind speculation. That's what the smartest people in the world tell us about this field of science. In your interpretation of how the world works, you should be accounting for how fields, frequencies, vibrations, and brain states influence your reality, because it's scientifically a vector for control and influence over us. You should read that again, because it's pretty heavy information you may have glossed over. We need to be actively monitoring the output of the radiation around us and take measures to ensure we're not exposed to too much of certain types of radiation. That should be common sense, and if you're in disagreement with that, then you should think it over a few more times. Not only that, but we need to be limiting exposure rates to the everyday electronics you're in close proximity with, such as your phone or iPad. When your electronics are plugged into a charging source, they are putting out dangerous levels of radiation, and it's not safe to hold after prolonged exposure, according to the FDA. But notice how you are completely unaware of that fact. You're exposed to a lot more radiation than you realize, and you may be just realizing it has complex consequences on your health and consciousness after prolonged exposure.